Bull Bear Buzz Podcast for decoding markets, fueling minds.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're jumping straight into the latest from Geo Financial Services today.
Yep, looking at their Q4 2025 and the full fiscal year 2025 results.
We've got a couple of things to work with. A recent news article, with market takes, and then the official earnings presentation itself from April 17th.
Right, the presentation gives the hard numbers and the company line, while the article adds that market reaction flavor.
So our mission is basically to cut through the noise, figure out what's really going on with their performance, and maybe what it points to for the future.
Exactly. See how the company's story matches up with what the market analysts are saying.
And right off the bat, a couple of things jumped out at me from the headlines. That massive leap in assets under management.
Oh, yeah. And the first ever dividend they announced definitely caught my eye, too.
Okay, so let's get into it. Maybe start with the basics, profitability.
Sure. So both sources confirm profit was up, but modestly for Q4 year-on-year.
Modestly? How much?
Consolidated net profit after tax was 316 crore. Now, compare that to 311 crore in Q4 last year.
Okay, so about 1.8% growth. Small, but positive.
Exactly. Steady, not spectacular for the quarter.
And what about the full fiscal year? Same picture.
Pretty similar for the consolidated view. Full year FY25 net profit was 1,613 crore. That's just slightly up from 16.5 crore in FY24.
Right.
Though a standalone profit after tax for the year showed a bit more movement, 549 crore for FY25 versus 383 crore in FY24.
Okay, so a pattern of, let's say, consistent but not explosive profit growth.
That seems fair.
Now, let's talk about that thing that really wasn't modest, the assets under management growth. The news made a big deal of it.
And rightly so. The earnings presentation gives the hard figure. AUM hit 10,053 crore as of March 31st this year.
10,000 crore? Okay, and what was it before?
That's the kicker. A year earlier, just 173 crore.
Wow, okay, wait, from 173 million to over 10 billion? That's exponential.
It really is. An absolute massive jump.
So what's driving that? Just scaling up? Getting more clients?
Well, the company points to both, yeah. Scaling operations and successful client acquisition.
It makes you wonder if there's successful cross-selling happening within the whole Geo ecosystem,
Could be. Or maybe some key partnerships kicking in. That kind of growth gives them serious scale now.
Right. Which kind of leads into the other big news, that first dividend.
Mm-hmm. Both sources flagged that one. 0.50 per share. First time ever.
That has to be seen as a positive sign, yeah. Confidence in their finances?
Generally, yes. Declaring a dividend usually signals confidence in future cash flows. And it's about returning value to shareholders, obviously.
Analysts probably like that.
The ones quoted in the news report certainly did. Saw it as a good sign, potentially boosting investor confidence.
Okay, makes sense. Let's look at the top line and bottom line pressures. Income First News mentioned a decent jump.
Yeah, a solid 24% year-on-year increase for Q4 total income came in at 518 crore, up from 418 crore.
In the full year.
Full year shows growth, too. Total income for FY25 was 2,079 crore, up from 1,855 crore in FY24. So, definitely moving upwards.
But growth costs money. What about expenses? They must be up, too.
Oh, absolutely. Total expenses also rose year on year. Q4 FY25 expenses were 168 crore.
Compared to?
103 crore in Q4 FY24.
Okay, quite a jump there.
And for the full year, expenses hit 485 crore in FY25, up from 325 crore the previous year.
So that reflects the investment in scaling up everything we're talking about, presumably.
That's the logical conclusion, yeah. Building out all these different business lines.
Right, let's dig into those segments then. The earnings presentation broke them down. Lending and leasing first, Geo Finance Limited, or JFL.
Yeah, so their AUM, that 10,053 crore, that sits mainly within JFL.
Makes sense.
And the presentation talks about expanding their physical footprint. They're in 10 Tier 1 cities now. Plus, they're building more partnerships for different loan types.
Okay. What about insurance broking, JIBL?
They're expanding their network there, too. Now working with 34 insurance partners.
34.
Okay.
And offering 61 direct-to-customer plans. They also mention refining the customer journey, focusing on a digital DIY platform, trying to make it easier for people.
Sounds like a theme.
And payments. There's the Payments Bank and Payment Solutions. Lots happening there.
Seems like it. Geo Payments Bank saw its customer base really surge, up to 2.31 million.
which is?
About 3 times what it was year on year.
Wow. Okay.
And their deposits, KS, and wallet also roughly tripled, reaching 295 crore.
Any other big moves in the bank?
Well, they mentioned planning to acquire SBI's stake in the venture. That's still subject to regulatory approval, though.
Ah, interesting.
And they've significantly grown their business correspondent network.
Hmm.
That's about reach, getting agents out there.
You're right, extending their physical touch points. And the other payment arm, Geo Payment Solutions.
Big news there was getting their online payment aggregator license. Now they're focused on, quote, profitable growth and improving their margins in payment processing.
Okay. And the last big piece is the investment side, the Geo BlackRock venture.
Yeah, that's definitely one to watch. The asset management arm, Geo BlackRock Asset Management, has filed for its final approval.
Final approval. So close to launching.
Seems like it's moving forward. And they've also filed applications for wealth management and broking licenses.
Under different entities.
Yep. Geo BlackRock Investment Advisors and Geo BlackRock Broking. They also mentioned they're actively recruiting senior execs, the CXOs, for these businesses.
So they're serious about getting into asset management, wealth, and broking pretty soon, it seems.
All the signs point that way. Building out a full suite of financial services.
It really looks like a comprehensive offering they're building, covering all the bases.
That's definitely the message from the presentation. They talk about a diversified suite for hashtag Janal, as they call it.
Janal. Kitschy.
Covering borrow, transact, protect, and invest categories. And the main approach is digital first through the GeoFinance app.
But not only digital, right? You mentioned physical expansion, too.
Exactly. It's a hybrid approach. Digital through the app integrations like with MyGeo and things like GeoSoundPay for merchants.
Right.
But also physical with JFL in those Tier 1 cities and the growing payments bank agent network.
And who are they targeting initially with the wealth and broking stuff?
The presentation specifically mentions focusing on mass affluent and above customers for those services, at least for now.
Makes sense. Okay, underpinning all of this activity must be some serious tech.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They emphasize using open source tech for agility,
Uh-huh.
end-to-end systems for lending, an upgraded tech stack for payments, and sort of a common horizontal stack across the group.
Efficiency, integration.
Yeah, and they talk about aiming for straight-through processing, focusing on user experience, and keeping costs down. Standard tech goals, but crucial at this scale.
And data. With the Geo ecosystem, they must have access to a ton of data. Are they using it?
They highlight data intelligence as a key pillar, using it for, precise targeting, improving the customer experience.
Risk management, too, presumably.
Definitely. Identifying early warning signals, and generally driving operational efficiencies using advanced analytics and AI. They're building out specific data and intelligence layers.
Fascinating. Okay, let's switch back to the news article for a moment. What were the market experts saying about the stock price reaction?
Well, the general feeling seemed quite positive. There was talk of a potential gap up opening for the share price on Monday following these results.
A jump at the open.
Yeah. And one analyst specifically suggested that any dips might be buying opportunities. They even threw out a long-term target of 350.
Ambitious. Any short-term views?
Shorter-term targets around 265 were also mentioned, along with specific entry and stop-loss levels for traders.
But we should add the usual disclaimer, right? These are just individual analyst views.
Absolutely critical. Not investment advice, but it gives you a sense of the market sentiment.
Okay. And just to confirm, the board did officially recommend that dividend payment.
Yes. The board recommended the 0.50 per equity share dividend for FY25. It still needs shareholder approval, of course, but it's the board's official recommendation.
Got it. And they are moving forward with the regulatory side for Geo BlackRock.
Correct. Those applications to SEBI for the investment advisor and broking licenses have been formally filed. Key steps.
So looking at the final summary in the earnings presentation, what were the key takeaways they wanted to emphasize?
They really stressed strong execution in FY25, the diverse range of offerings, the mix of digital and physical expansion, using best-in-class tech, data insights, and having a strong talent pool. They also highlighted some specific financials, again, like the consolidated PPOP.
PPOP.
Pre-provisioning operating profit came in at 1,594 crore for FY25. Gives a view of profitability before setting aside funds for potential loan losses.
Right. Core operational profit.
Exactly. And income from business operations at 349 crore for the year.
Okay, so wrapping it all up, we've seen this picture of, well, modest profit growth overall for Geo Financial Services.
Yeah. Steady but not dramatic on the profit front.
But the really standout points are that incredible surge in assets under management,
Absolutely huge.
the milestone of their very first dividend declaration,
Significant signal.
and this clear, aggressive expansion across lending, payments, insurance, and now seriously moving into investments with BlackRock.
That sums it up well. They're building momentum across multiple fronts.
So hopefully for everyone listening, this deep dive has given you a clearer picture of where Geo Financial Services stands after these results and where they seem to be heading.
Yeah, cutting through the numbers and reports to get the essential story.
And maybe a final thought to leave people with. Considering that massive AUM growth and this big push into wealth and broking with a giant like BlackRock, how might Geo Financial Services really shake up the established financial services players in India over the next few years? What could that disruption look like for investors and maybe even just for regular consumers?
That is the multi-billion-dollar question, isn't it? Definitely something to watch.